So yeah, this could almost be like a two-part series because we talked about First Men in the Moon, and then we also watched The Time Machine, George Pal's Time Machine. Things get weird. Like, you think you kind of know what's going to happen, but it always, like, you know, has like little twists to it. Like, I love that set of his house. Little things hanging on the wall, and then his maid's got like this big dinner ready, and his friends are all there, and they all look like you know, characters from the Music Man or something, like the Town Fathers or something, and they're all like just so angry and like you know pulling their hair out and clipping their cigars like Durant.
They're all bundled up in their layers and their jackets and everything.
Yeah, and then Wilbur from Mr. Ed comes in, and he's got a good attitude about the whole thing, so you know he's gonna be.
And you mentioned too, like Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah,
he's like me lucky dime.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the voice of Scrooge McDuck.
Because like I swear, like at the end, it like when it hit me, I was like, no way, and I still haven't confirmed it, so I'm like,
yeah, right, because he's doing the brogue. I remembered it as him playing like three characters where he plays like the time traveler's friend, who's referred to as George. And in the movie they refer to him as H.G. Wells. He's George Wells. I think in the book they just referred to him as the time traveler. I don't think he had a name in the book. And I think, you know, for the movie they make him, you know, H.G. Wells, like as if like this is like H.G. Wells' diary that he's writing. And then when they make Time After Time, like kind of like a sequel, a soft sequel to The Time Machine, it's H.G. Wells again, like as a reference to the
we
movie.
should cover that one too. Mary Steenburgen and
we'll have to.
It's a great one.
And Caligula or whatever.
Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell, yeah.
we have to do the cover Caligula.
Yeah, that would probably get a lot of views. Come up with like a good thumbnail for that. Yeah, Alex the Droog.
Total Rico Piece Theater.
Yeah. But like I thought that Wilbur guy did triple duty because he's like then he plays his son.
Oh yeah.
And then the time traveler comes back, you know, goes even further into the future. And then he plays his son as an old man. It's not a third guy. It's still the same. It's the dad and the son as a young man, and then as an old man.
Is that Rod Taylor? I think he might be I can't remember.
Yeah, Rod Taylor is the time traveler. So yeah, Rod Taylor, who plays Churchill in Inglourious Basterds.
The design of the like the time machine, it's like a sleigh almost, and they kind of kept that for the other like the lesser remake, but like I just like the concept. You're like sitting in it, and like you know, I like how the controls are laid out. The steampunk action. It's like the spaceship in Men in the Moon, and then in the Time Machine in this one. I just like the look and style.
Yeah, me too. I like it. I like it a lot too. I've seen because there's there's like Marvel Comics adaptations of the Time Machine and the first Men in the Moon, not based on the movies, but like based on the books, and they do like a much more kind of like high tech version of the Time Machine, and it's like it's kind of cool, but yeah, that again steampunk. You know, this is like, you know, it's kind of insulting to call these things steampunk because they like predate that, and you know, steampunk kind of has like bad connotations. But
yeah, and the special effects are so good, like. You know, the different eras where you got volcanic eruptions, like the sets, like the scale models, like the Morlocks look so awesome.
Yeah, the Morlocks are such a great little like surprise. They're safe for like, and when they show up, they are like genuinely scary. Like, it's a G-rated movie, but like up to that point, it's like, you know, fine, you know, for the family and stuff. But like when the Morlocks show up, it is like it's nightmare time. They are pretty creepy looking.
And like I even like paused it. I'm like, I think I'm gonna get have a night terror. Like their faces got the fangs and everything, and like
and that mask, like whoever's doing the masks or whatever, like that it feels like this could be like a Twilight Zone, the movie, or like an extra long Twilight Zone episode, because they do kind of look like the sort of Twilight Zone creatures, and maybe there was a couple masks laying around the set, laying around the studio.
Dawn Post.
When they were making Twilight Zone.
They're like, we got a mold of Shatner's head. They're like, really easy to turn this into a Morlock. There was amazing stop motion special effects.
Love it. Yeah, and
decomposition.
That was like a commonality. So this is directed by George Pal. And Ray Harryhausen is like a disciple of George Pal, but George Pal would do the puppet tunes. They were these like sort of stop motion animated, sort of like, cute kind of kids things. And then started making some like, special effects kind of like movies and things. And this being one of them.
What a double feature. It's like people fighting like two like different kind of like alien henchmen like on a cliff.
Right, yeah.
Like I just love it. And then it shows like the time like tick by, like speed through. I'm like getting kind of anxious watching it.
Like the First Men in the Moon, it has the structure is kind of him telling his story. You do get into the weird stuff kind of like by degrees. Oh, and then he has that cool scale model of the time machine, this little tiny time machine that he like sends it into the future and stuff. Yeah, when he's doing the time travel stuff, even that is because he just kind of gently, he's like, he goes a little bit ahead in time and sees that like the candle, went down and stuff. And then just fast forwarding through like the fashions from the mannequin across the street.
And then watching that decomposition of the body right in front of you, it's like, damn. Is Harryhausen, did he do this one? Like the special effects on this one? I can't remember.
No, George Pal.
George Pal
is the director and also kind of, I mean, he's got his like effects team and stuff. So I don't know if George Pal is sitting there like moving the stuff. I mean, maybe, but.
Yeah, I loved it, Tom. What a great like companion for
it's kind of good to see them in order of like the time machine and then see the First Men in the Moon, because it goes like that. Like and the time machine that's like the bona fide classic. Like that's part of the canon, where First Men in the Moon is kind of like the people who know about it, but it's not like. The Time Machine was in like heavy rotation on TV when I was a kid. Like it was very easy to cross paths with it, where First Men in the Moon, like not.
I never saw either of them. And I watched First Men in the Moon first and then Time Machine. And I was like, when I was watching Time Machine, I'm like, this is dope. Wish I was watching First Men in the Moon.
Yeah, imagine the Time Machine except the Morlocks are stop motion. Like that's, but I mean, yeah, the Morlocks are pretty great.
Morlocks, then.
And just the design of, like, again, there's this like aesthetic that I'm so into, and I think it's like that's where like Jack Kirby really speaks to me, because he's part of that. When he goes into the future and there's that like Sphinx, with like the sirens that come out and stuff, and then all those like craters. There's like those craters that are like the ventilation system for the underground world and stuff.
They look so neat.
And it's also kind of like a great Star Trek episode too. It's got like the same kind of like film stock and the same like worldview in like Star Trek, and it's in this too, where it's like this guy shows up. And then he's just gonna tell everybody about like everything they're doing wrong. Like, you guys, it's like the old man yelling at the young kids and stuff. And then he comes in and just starts like smashing everything and kicking all kinds of ass. And you have that in you had that in First Men in the Moon. You have it here, and again, it's so much fun because when. Like, it is so much fun, and I understand why, it's kind of like an unsophisticated view of things and stuff, but it's so much fun in a movie. And then the Guy Pearce time machine, like, it's like he goes to the future and they're like all enlightened and they're like living in harmony with nature, and then they have to fight the Morlocks and stuff. Where in in the 50s time machine, it's like he shows up and he's like, you guys don't know what you're doing, and has to like, kick all kinds of ass.
It's like if the look, feel, and vibe of the character in the time machine goes into like the idiocracy future.
I mean, I feel like that must have been on Mike Judge's mind when he made Idiocracy, because it's got the same structure. Like, he might have been like watching the time machine and be like, because it is because a similar thing kind of happens, that like mankind kind of like goes to seed a little bit. Now, I mean, the twist in this, and maybe this might have been interesting to explore in Idiocracy or something, but that like mankind kind of went two different ways. So it's like, half of the people became kind of like lambs to slaughter, just kind of, and then the other half became these kind of like cannibalistic,
I like their color, the blue, like shaggy blue.
Great. Yeah. It's like it's made in the 50s. And then he travels to like the future, the not too distant future of the 1960s.
Oh yeah,
everybody's wearing like anti-radiation suits and everything's like a little bit sci-fi'd up, and there's a nuclear war going, and London is destroyed by a nuclear war. And as a kid I remember thinking like, ha ha, like like I would always like love it when like you'd watch something where they like mispredict, where it's like, yeah, it's like, that's not what the 60s looked like, you idiots. Where's the Beatles? There wasn't a nuclear war in London in the 60s.
There's like in Demolition Man, it's like the near future of 1994.
Exactly. Well, the one that always blew my mind was RoboCop, because it was 1991. It was made in 1987 for the future world of 1991. I mean, they were really cutting it close. If you do a science fiction movie in 1987 and have it take place in 1991, you're really just saying it's taking place right now.
Another movie we're gonna have to do is that Tom Selleck sci-fi one.
Yeah, right.
What's it called? Runaway.
Runaway. Yeah.
It's built in the near future. Is all they say.
Well, Max Headroom was like 30 minutes into the future.
That's amazing. That one.
The special effects were so much fun, and like the miniatures, and watching it like a nice print, and so it is cool seeing like the seams, seeing where the compositing is, and seeing like the little model cars and stuff as they get like nuked. You could put together like a chart, where it's like First Men on the Moon, Time Machine, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Clash of the Titans. Yeah, Clash of the Titans. There's this, like, Ray Harryhausen, even though Ray Harryhausen didn't work on this, it's still, it's got that like stop motion, that sort of view of England or whatever is very Hammer horror. Like you could imagine Frankenstein's lab being in the basement of the time traveler's house. And there's some like poignant kind of stuff in there too, like the way his friend is like real dedicated to it, like keeps his like memory alive, when he disappears and stuff. Like as a kid, I read the book too, and the movie's got pretty much, the main beats of the book, but there's one part that's missing that I can understand why they left it out, but it would have been so cool to see, is like after he kind of like, is in that time with like the Morlocks and stuff.
Yeah.
Then he like goes like really far into the future. He's like, let me see how far I can take this. And so he goes to like the last days of planet Earth, where whatever life is on Earth is like, unrecognizable. It's like these like crab-like creatures that are crawling across. And that would have just been so amazing to see in that sort of George Pal, stop motion thing of like this weird, this dark Earth that Earth in its last days and stuff, where even more, there's something quaint about Morlocks, because at least Morlocks are somewhat recognizably human.
Like when I read the book and it got to that part where it talked about the last days of Earth, like that's like one of the moments that blew my mind. Like reading books in general.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff to think about. And like I love when they would go into, the movie also kind of makes me think of Land of the Lost. Yes. Again, we talk about like the slee stack with the aliens in First Men on the Moon, but like, when they would go into these like sort of temples of knowledge or whatever, and there'd be some like random Egyptian statue.
Hell yeah.
And then, the books on the wall that like turn to dust and stuff. And then with the ring, when they spin the rings and then the rings start talking.
I love it.
Also kind of makes me think of, Superman's Fortress of Solitude in like the Richard Donner movies.
Just the special effects. I'm like obsessed with these like the aesthetic of this.
Yeah, the aesthetic, and so, because like science fiction just doesn't look like that anymore. And for a long time, like that was what science fiction looked like. Like you can't do that again. You do a time machine movie in, I don't know, whatever year it was, 1997 or whatever, and it's the Guy Pearce one. Like that was like kind of what the science fiction aesthetic became, and it's kind of there's no going back, and you kind of miss that aesthetic, especially with science fiction. You know, you kind of miss that aesthetic.
Early 2000s, it's like Matrix runoff kind of like.
Yeah.
And
everybody's still like recovering from the Matrix. It was just too patronizing or whatever to have the Eloy, like getting a stern talking to from this like old British guy, you know?
Yeah, it's always funny seeing him in like whatever setting. He still has this like white shirt and like vest, just walking around.
Yes, similar like profile to the guy from First Men in the Moon. It's like basically the same character, you know.
I even felt like this, like the sets they might have shot on the same set, just like the cozy house. Yeah,
I mean the First Men in the Moon came later, so you know, I'm sure they were looking to the time machine for some of their cue. I mean, especially since it's another H.G. Wells.
Tom, you couldn't have picked better flicks, man.
Yeah, man, they just really hit the spot. It just kind of.
And I'm glad they were available to watch. Because, like, normally these feel like, you know, you might have to get them from, like, wherever you can get them.
These kind of movies, it's like, keep an eye out at Salvation Army or something, you know, see if it shows up on the shelf. And, you know, that would be a good bonus feature for the Guy Pearce time machine would be to have, you know, the George Powell one.
That would be sick.
On there. You know, there's room for romance in it, too. You know, there's his girlfriend that he meets. It's also got the same beat of, like, where the monsters like steal his escape route, like they steal his time machine the same way they stole the spaceship too. So it's like, oh man, he's really stuck, and then he has to
it's like the time machine's powered on grass, man. The Morlocks have smoked all the fuel.
Well, it felt like there was like some 60s like youth culture kind of stuff going on, and maybe like being on the wrong side of the generation gap stuff going on, because it was kind of like when he meets the Eloy and they have like this passive attitude. It's kind of like, so like the girl's drowning and everybody's just like, yeah, she's drowned. Like it is a very like generation gap thing of like, oh, this is how all the kids are now. They don't care. They're, you know, yeah, man, groovy. She's aren't you going to help her? She's drowning. Groovy, man.
He's like, good thing this is powered by the blood of hippies. It says ass, gas, or grass on the time machine. No one rides for free.
George Melius's the time machine, where like he like has to like machine guns.
He's got a T-shirt on the back that says, "If you can read this, the Morlock fell off."
So yeah, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And please follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli, on Instagram at Tom_Scioli, and support my Patreon. Go to patreon.com.
You can follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_show.
And yeah, we'll
see you in the distant future.
In the distant future year of 1963.
He shows up and starts passing out like job applications. He's like, become a fine, upstanding young citizen. Like,
get a haircut.
Because
they all have like Beatles haircut.
I know, it's like
they have like the bowl, the Beatle bowl.